I'm actually going to get us kicked off. I'm sure we may have a couple more people join us as we go through. A couple of people probably still struggling to open the link. I know I quite often do with these things. Just to talk a little bit about our agenda today, what we're going to be covering. So first of all, we're going to do some introductions. Next up, we will then talk about how you can, if you like, steady the ship. Then we'll talk about some of the help that you are going to be able to get, both from the government, also from sort of tech companies, also from each other. Then we're going to talk a little bit about working from home. We'll think about how you might need to adjust your business model to maybe pivot. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about building business resilience, because I hate to break it to you all, but this probably isn't the last crisis that you will face in your working life, in your business life. And at the end, there will be an opportunity to ask anything you like. At that point, we'll probably open up the sort of microphones of everybody so that they'll be able to ask questions directly. But until then, if you do have any questions, please do pop them in the chat window, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. We've got our first couple of little introductions there. I'm actually going to come back to those in a short while. First of all, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. And one of the questions that kind of pops up a lot is actually how you pronounce my ridiculous surname. So if that has occurred to you, then my name is Tom Szekeres. If it hasn't, well, tough. That's my name. I am a strategy director. I do a lot of speaking, a lot of training. I'm also a small business owner. You can kind of connect with me via any of these channels. And yeah, since sort of probably around about 2013, I've been doing a lot of in-person training. That's with companies like General Assembly, Decoded, Guardian Masterclass, and Marcus Evans. And also probably now it's something like 7 years ago, I founded a digital media, social media agency called This Here. And we had a team actually across 4 different continents. So actually we sort of knew how to work remotely from the sort of early days. I sold my stake in that actually in 2017. And now I run a couple of businesses, a training business, a remote working consultancy, and a non-profit. But yeah, probably, and there are kind of some of my clients that I have worked with over the last, 12 years now, including actually for Dummies. So who was it earlier on? We had Stefan Thomas, author of Business Networking for Dummies. Glad to see you here. We did a promotion for Windows 10 for Dummies. Don't tell anybody, but we ran the entire promotion using our Macs. But there we go. Anyway, we slightly digress. That's basically some of my kind of professional experience. One very kind of bit of personal experience that hopefully also qualifies me to talk to you about how to adapt in a crisis comes from shortly after I sold my agency, and I found myself having to work from a hospital bedroom. So my wife had twins, and unfortunately they had something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. An amazing story. I won't go into the whole thing now, but we had this incredible doctor called Professor Nicolaides, who did in utero laser surgery, saved their lives, but sadly also broke the waters around one of my twins at 16 weeks. So we actually had to go into isolation. And yeah, we were working out of this, this kind of hospital bed, completely socially distancing, having to wash our hands loads, completely and utterly disrupted. Thankfully, my daughters, although they were born very, very prematurely, they did end up actually making it through. They survived, and thankfully are now kind of thriving. This is them actually shortly after they came home from hospital a little while ago. They're now amazing toddlers. So kind of quite, hopefully, a heartwarming heartening story. But yeah, I've been there. I've done self-isolation. We had to self-isolate pretty much for 6 months, and running a business alongside looking after 2 very premature twins, one of whom was on oxygen. It was kind of tough. So yeah. More recently, I've kind of used that experience to start a little consultancy, and this is really helping companies with working remotely. But that's kind of enough about me for now. It would be great actually to hear a little bit more about you. I know some of you have actually already done some really nice introductions, and that's brilliant. I'm going to read those out in a moment. For the rest of you, it would be great if you could use the chat box to introduce yourself if you haven't done so already. Be actually really great if you could tell us where you're based, which room of your house maybe you're working out of, and it'd be great to understand what your line of work is, and also maybe one positive thing that you hope for post-crisis. That'd be kind of a nice thing, wouldn't it, to kind of talk about. So first of all, who have we got here? We have Dominic Bristow, who is co-founder of Stylus Education, and also a Tide business customer. Excellent. Gary near Bath runs an IT training company. Holly, who's based in Leeds, is the owner of Yoga Hero. Awesome stuff. We also have Rebecca from Ginger Foods in Manchester, being hit from the start with the hospitality ban. I can kind of really relate to that. And a Tide customer, watching this while waiting on the car, so we'll be quiet. Cool. You don't need to worry about being quiet. We can't hear you at the moment. Mike Breeze is a business consultant, leadership coach, and also has a couple of property businesses. And we also have Rob, who is running an online equestrian business from Leicestershire. And who else have we got? Mike, Media and Tech Advisory. Louise, who is founder of Poetic Endings, a modern funeral company in London. Okay, lovely. And we have Tim in lockdown in Ukraine, a sales performance consultant based in his lounge. Yeah, based out of his lounge. We also have Stefan, who we heard from earlier on, who is an author, but also a speaker, and runs an app called the Networking Retreats, which Tide apparently about to mention in their blog. Lovely stuff. And Stefan is in Witney in Oxfordshire. Hi, Francesca, founder of a brand agency, The Playground Studio, in a London living room right now. Steve Wheeler, program manager, Henley on Thames, ArcFlow, founder of. And we also have Simon Edwards, Salesforce consultancy in Liverpool called Carla. Lots and lots of brilliant people. I'm probably going to have to kind of move on from that, but thank you so much for introducing yourselves. Go on, one last one. Humaira, who has a restaurant in the West End of Glasgow, which is kind of, yeah, pretty kind of tough. And Laura, who has a magazine, coffee shop and event space. Magazine can go online, but events and coffee shop, not so much. Well, hopefully you've got a couple of ideas for maybe a few alternatives. If you do have, by the way, any internet issues, as Humaira currently is having, don't worry too much. We will be hopefully able to. I think that, yeah, we are recording this session, so hopefully you'll be able to still watch this session a bit later on. So we will send around a link if you do end up having any problems. So let's start off with talking about steadying the ship. And I suppose one of the really unhelpful metaphors that is currently going around is that we're in some kind of war. And thankfully, I think since I actually wrote this presentation, people have pushed back against that a little bit. I think it's a lot more helpful to think of this more as a storm that has kind of hit us very suddenly and very hard, but a storm that potentially, we know that storms happen, and we know that this won't be, as we say, the kind of last storm. And yeah, when the storm hits, immediately, you don't try and continue to get to your destination. You kind of hunker down and end up probably pressing pause on your goals. So hopefully a lot of you are kind of on this journey already, but one of the first things you really need to do is to actually really kind of hunker down. And I think, yeah, part of that, you kind of need to accept, I suppose, what is happening, what's going on around us out there in the world. It's quite difficult in many ways. A lot of people are essentially going through a grief process. And yeah, you go through the sort of 5 stages of grief, including denial as to what is happening, maybe some anger as well. The sooner we can all move to acceptance that actually this probably isn't just going to be a few weeks, may not even be a few months, that things actually may have changed perhaps permanently, then we can start to move on from that and actually reshape our businesses, reshape what we offer. And actually, a lot of entrepreneurial people, we're probably quite optimistic. And this has served us quite well in the past. I don't think really anybody starts a business or strikes out on their own, not really backing themselves. So it can be a little bit tricky to then adopt, I guess, a kind of more pessimistic mindset. So I do think we kind of, well, we should still be quite optimistic about the mid to long term. In the short term, we do need to assume that things will get worse, that contracts will get cancelled, government support might actually not be as good as we thought it was, and of course that the economy will worsen, that we won't necessarily get a sort of a bouncing back of the economy. And we could well be in for something that looks a little bit like this. We may actually go through a scenario where there are maybe 6 or 7 lockdowns over the next 18 months, which could actually be, yeah, really quite brutal for our business. The important thing here to say is that actually there are lots of potential scenarios. And I guess if you haven't done so already, you need to start thinking about different scenarios and thinking about those when you're looking at doing cash flow. I'd be interested to know actually who out there, and by the way, hello to Christian, who is an executive coach and consultant at endeavour.coach. I'd like to know from everybody, including Christian actually, whether or not you have done, and be honest, whether you have done any cash flow forecasting. If you haven't and you want to get started in a really kind of quick and dirty fashion, then you can go to this short link here, which actually Kuin has posted into the chat. It is t.szekeres, t.szekeres.es/Tide-Cashflow. This will take you to a spreadsheet that Tide have put together that allows you to do a very, very simple short-term sort of cash flow forecast. I would probably advise, though, it is worth using apps, and very helpfully Simon, promise you Simon is not a plant, has talked about doing cash flows using Float app that links to Xero. And yeah, I would actually strongly advise using a tool like Fluidly or like Float app. Fluidly is the one that I use, and I've used it with Xero. You can also use it with QuickBooks. Float app is also really good. If you have Free Agent, for example, then that's probably the only one that you're going to be able to use. Michael says, yep, they've done multiple scenario cash flow forecasts on all of our businesses. Great. Oliver is saying, yeah, on an envelope, but this looks much more kind of proper. They kind of the great thing about software is you can actually play around with different scenarios. You can actually look at as well managing your kind of the people who owe you money. So a lot of these platforms will actually also allow you to set up automated emails. Yeah, we've got a question here actually, which is from Deja, which is actually, yeah, which is the simplest. So if you do have if you are using accounting software like QuickBooks or Xero or Float, which of course all integrate really nicely as well, those accounting packages with Tide, then yeah, you should be able to link them together. I'd say, yeah, either of those, fluidly.com or floatapp.com, they will help walk through and they have really, really good tutorials for how to actually do a cash flow forecast. I've used both of them. I think they're both really good. On balance, Fluidly is probably my preferred option there. Oliver Hewitt says that he uses CASHFLOW. I believe CASHFLOW works with one of those. I can't remember exactly which. So yeah, definitely get a grip on your current sort of position and projections, and yeah, see how things might progress if payments start coming in late or not at all. And yeah, importantly, you do need to think about different scenarios. And these are scenarios both in terms of, you know, what's going to go on with the actual pandemic and whether we're going to see a recovery in the economy or whether we're going to see lockdowns end or continue. But equally, you need to just think about scenarios like, what if my revenue drops? Or what will it look like if I cut my costs? Or indeed, what will it look like if I take out a loan? So yeah, have a little think about those different scenarios and definitely use one of those apps if you can. Otherwise, the little spreadsheet might also be quite helpful. And also, once you've done that and you have a kind of grip on your finances and some kind of forecast for different scenarios, you then need to think about doing a kind of review of your business. And actually, if you have a team, talk to your team about this. If you don't, just have this review yourself. You need to be quite self-critical when you do this. You need to actually say, you know, look, what is working well that we're doing right now? What isn't really working? Which of our businesses or you know, parts of our business just isn't really working, and actually what information, what data perhaps is missing or unclear. And then I think probably you need to really kind of rein in potentially your marketing spend. If you are spending on marketing, you need to really rein in and focus on incredibly high value marketing channels. Conversely, actually, if you don't do really any marketing, if you tend to kind of rely on word of mouth, then conversely, actually now's a good time to invest in, for example, social advertising, because actually the cost of reaching 1,000 people has got a lot lower all of a sudden. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So yeah, you kind of want to focus on your high value marketing channels. And partly as well, if you have, for example, an email list, one thing that you really need to do is almost kind of remind people that you're still here, that you exist, that you're still in business. And one of the best ways you can do that is to actually be, as much as you can, be quite helpful. By the way, we have a quick question at this point, which I missed, which was from Christian. And he said, will we get a copy of these slides, please? Sorry if I've already said so. No, I haven't already said so. There will be a copy of the video. I'm sure we should be able to arrange some kind of copy of the slides. It won't be immediately, but yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to do that. No problem whatsoever for you, Christian. So yeah, remind people that you are still here. And for this, I think email is really key. And if you tend to rely on, if you like, person-to-person email, now might actually be a good idea to spend some time getting to grips with a tool like MailChimp. Above all, you want to provide useful information to your customers, and then actually offer, you know, follow up with an offer to kind of help. This is an example from a mortgage broker. So actually, this is a template. You can see it says "Dear First Name." And yeah, they wanted to very quickly let their customers know what help was going to be available to them. So for example, their mortgage repayment holidays. Equally, if I kind of scroll down there, they wanted to let them know that actually there's been an interest rate cut, a historic interest rate cut, all the way down to 0.1%. So actually, then we've got this call to action: get in touch to find out about remortgaging. Because actually, and by the way, if you haven't done so, if you do have a mortgage, then yeah, now could be a really, really good time to talk to a mortgage broker. Just a little tip there. So yeah, a really nice bit of information, an offer to help, a call to action, and actually multiple ways to get in touch, both via the phone, also via a callback, or just to kind of reply to the email. And the other thing that you can do with email is you can actually use email automation. So actually, if you do have the kind of business where customers use churn, you can actually use MailChimp automation to send automated emails. So as well as sending that reminder email that he still exists, this mortgage broker is also sending an email and this is the template that says, look, dear so-and-so, according to our records, the mortgage on your property is coming up for renewal on this date. Hopefully something to kind of get stuck into. I do kind of think it is really important to be helpful. And for some of you, you might want to actually consider creating almost helpful tools or websites or initiatives to help your community that also help market your brand as well. So yeah, do be helpful. One thing that I really liked, a friend of mine set up a website called dealdelivers.com in her hometown of Deal in Kent. She made the code open source. So anybody with a even vaguely technical background can actually now set up their own version. So I've set up a version for my hometown of Dulwich called dulwichdelivers.com. And actually this has been both really helpful for businesses in the local community, but it's also been a chance to open the conversation and actually for me to sort of find potential new customers. I'm also working on a couple of startup ideas that may well come off the back of that. DJ says, and I hope did I get your name, the pronunciation of your name right, DJ? Hopefully I did, we'll find out in a moment. But DJ's been doing free skincare content on Instagram, brilliant stuff. And yeah, I think, yeah, it's been working really well for, I'm gonna go for her. I think I could be fairly confident. Yeah, her, cool. I hope that's the correct pronoun. So yeah, there is this very, very good point here. Yeah, you don't want to be seen chasing ambulances, absolutely, 100%. So what I sort of will say there is actually your messaging is super, super important, as Michael highlights. Everything has, like, the offer to help needs to be absolutely 100% front and center. There's literally, for example, here on dulwichdelivers.com, there's literally no branding. It doesn't say anything about me. All that happens is that people have been clicking the email us button top right and then starting a conversation, and that's been sort of really, really helpful. But yeah, I totally agree. You need to be really careful how you message this stuff. So for example, yeah, the emails from the mortgage broker business, it's actually quite helpful in a way that you're using a email marketing platform, because it seems less, almost less like you're an individual contacting someone being needy. You're just putting that offer out there almost. Cool. So another thing that is probably going to be quite important is to cut your costs. And one of the best ways of cutting your costs is going to be to sort of rein in some of the subscriptions. A lot of software subscriptions can actually end up being quite expensive. If you do actually have spare seats, I've seen this from quite a few people, you can actually quite often sell software licenses that you're not using to other people to kind of help subsidize that. And yeah, renegotiate contracts that you have, and potentially also leases. Obviously make sure you do that with kindness. But yeah, this is an opportunity to say, look, my business has been hit. As a consequence, we really need to renegotiate this contract, or this potentially this lease. We need to kind of share the kind of pain around. And yeah, the other thing is, it's really important, if you are the kind of business that sends invoices, I would say, first of all, maybe it might be a good time to offer a 5% discount for early payments, maybe if clients pay within 15 days. The other thing as well, even though by law, people have to pay within 30 days of receiving the invoice, and actually argue that, you know, we live now in a world where it's very easy to make payments. So actually, I think if you are a Tide customer, I think when you send invoices, I think actually about reducing the time to pay, the sort of due by date, to 7 days. This doesn't mean that you should then chase people if they don't pay within 7 days. You should still only chase them if they miss the 30-day time frame. But yeah, I think simple nudges to get people to pay early are going to be really, really helpful. If you, it pains me to say this because you know, I come from an agency background. The other thing is, if you currently use marketing agencies, you may well be better off at the moment switching to using freelancers. Freelancers tend not to have as many overheads. Freelancers also are kind of struggling right now. And could really do with the help. So actually, yeah, do think about reaching out to freelance creatives or designers. There's some really, really great talented people out there. Yeah, you're kind of removing those agency overheads. The other thing to kind of do is think about automation. Website like Zapier.com, I'm going to kind of type that in, is really good for automating a lot of your kind of business processes, because really you need to be spending as much time as possible now on work that matters, on billable work. There's probably a lot of stuff that you're currently doing that can actually be automated to kind of help with your workflow. And talking about getting help, I think the place to start here really is actually to above all help yourself. It's a bit of a cliche, but when you go on a plane, remember going on planes, you obviously have this this kind of health and safety card. And this health and safety card, you know, reminds you to put the oxygen mask over your own face before helping others. And this is kind of really, really important. So please, especially if you have other people relying on you, you need to really look after yourself. It really starts, I think, with getting enough sleep. Even if you think that you don't need it, please, please, please look after yourself. Get enough sleep. Keep yourself well nourished. Keep eating good foods. Keep yourself well exercised as well. And yeah, do make time as well to relax. I know that for many of us, it can feel like panic mode. It can feel like we have to really do everything we can to save our businesses. But please, please, please do make time for yourself and look after yourself. I also want to kind of highlight here, and Kuan has actually bunged a lot of different links in here into the chat box, so you can hopefully copy and paste some of these. But yeah, if you go to tide.co/blog/coronavirus, Tide have put together a lot of really great resources for small businesses, for freelancers. I would also advise signing up for the coronavirus aid mailing list. That you can do that from that particular link. The other really nice thing that Tide have launched is actually a chatbot, which is called Tide's eligibility checker. This, as you can see right here, allows you to find out what support you can get during the outbreak. It's quite a kind of long link there to get to it, so don't worry. We have copy pasted that into the chat window. So do take a look at that, because yeah, it's quite a nice kind of friendly way of finding out what support your business can get. And that's also made my job a little bit easier, because previously I was going to take you through the various bits and pieces of help that you are able to get. But actually now I'm not going to bother talking through all of that stuff. You can, of course, use that lovely little chatbot. Equally, a lot of those links I was going to take you through, we've actually copy pasted them there into the chat box window. So yeah, you will have an opportunity to grab those links a little bit later on as well. And yeah, in terms of support that is available from the advertising giants, there's lots of advertising credits that are going to be made available. For Google, these will only appear in your Google Ads account if you've run any kind of Google Ads, for example, AdWords or something like that, over the past year. That will automatically appear, so do check ads.google.com, especially if you haven't been in there in a little while. Facebook, on the other hand, is offering cash grants as well as ad credits. To be eligible, you have to have between 2 and 50 employees, been in business over a year, and be able to prove that you've experienced challenges from COVID-19. To get this help, you actually have to sign up. So you go to facebook.com/business/boost/grants. And I think that help is going to be perhaps a little bit more extensive. Equally, I think they're going to be giving businesses lots more resources there to help them, for example, with advertising on Facebook or Instagram for the first time, which I think actually is going to be, much as I have a love-hate relationship with social media, I think that's going to be a really important place to reach new customers. And actually, yeah, this is because these things that we call CPMs, so the cost of reaching 1,000 people, they've actually gone right down. So actually, it's now, you can be much more competitive in terms of reaching lots and lots of people on social media advertising. The only thing is that conversion rates have also dropped. So actually, people are less likely to buy from you after seeing one of your adverts, partly because people aren't sure about making investments. Partly it's because businesses haven't actually adapted the advertising that they're running to be effective yet. And partly it's because a lot of people, they're just quite anxious. They don't have time for advertising. They really want to find out about how their friends and family are doing. A really nice little resource as well is actually, it shows deals for businesses in the time of COVID-19. This is We Are All In It Together 2020.com. This is a really nice list of different businesses that are offering really, really good deals. Software businesses, quite often small software businesses. This is a really, really nice resource and can be really, really helpful if you are looking to bolster your remote working tool set. Lots of really good stuff on there. And if you are, I know some of you are designers or creatives, you may find it helpful to take a payment holiday if you use Adobe's software like Photoshop or Illustrator. There's a link here that tells you how to do that. It's a little bit buried away, but you can actually take a little payment holiday. The other thing that you might want to consider is switching software. So actually, this is a link. If you go into your browser and type in switching.software, this will actually come up with cheaper or even sometimes free alternatives to software that might currently be costing you quite a bit of money. So that's kind of tech support. Finally, emotional support. It is really important actually to look after your mental health. And so yeah, I'd actually kind of say to you, look, if you aren't already, think about starting to see a therapist. Therapists are actually really, really awesome tools to kind of have in your tool set. Sorry, that makes them sound like they're awful people. They're really wonderful people to kind of have, if you like, in your kind of armory. It's at the moment, there's a really, really great offer from welldoing.org/counseling/discount. Lots and lots of really, really fantastic counselors have had their in-person training cancelled. And now you can book them with a really great discount. You can actually have counseling sessions remotely via tools such as Zoom. And what about if you're kind of on your own? Well, one thing that that I found really, really helpful is that I have found myself an accountability partner, and actually he's there on this webinar, which I wasn't expecting him to join us, but there we go. Hello, Dom, if you're still there, as I'm sure you are. It can be really, really lonely actually if you are on your own, if you're a freelancer, or if you like the sole owner of your business. It can actually be really helpful to find an accountability partner who can help you stay on track with what you need to do. So what you might want to do is pair up with another freelance friend or small business owner and book in a regular Zoom meeting. Perhaps it could be every Thursday or every Friday, something like that. Then each person will take 30 minutes or so to talk about how the week went, what's going well, what could be going better, what challenges they're facing. And then your partner's going to be able to kind of feedback and help you see things, hopefully from another perspective. And I guess by chatting, hopefully, to someone who works in a different field, you will benefit actually from having that different point of view. So that's a really, really helpful thing that it's actually really helped me see things a little bit differently. I used to have a business partner when I ran my agency. Actually, having an accountability partner is really helpful, even though we don't work in the same business. And yeah, talking. Oh yeah, we actually have the offer here. So actually, yeah, if you do want us to matchmake you, then yeah, potentially we can hopefully make that happen. So if anybody would like to be Mike's business partner, who has been in a corporate but also in a startup, do let him know, and we will matchmake you. We'll put you guys together a bit later on. So yeah. Working from home is kind of, the next kind of logical step to sort of talk about. And I think when we're working remotely, when we're not in the same room as people, one of the first things that can sometimes cause a bit of a struggle is that sometimes we don't empathize perhaps as much as we should with our employees. We need to basically have a lot of empathy for them completely. They may not have, if you like, the same amount of information that you have. It can be incredibly important to just reassure them, as long as you're able to, that actually there is a plan, that you are working on, if you like, steadying the ship, that you are very clearly communicating with them what you are considering, whether or not you're considering furloughing, whether that's going to be open to them. I think as well, if people are continuing to work for you, if you are able to work remotely, you need to remember that people have a lot going on right now. And if they are not able to be on that phone call at 9 a.m., if they're running a little bit late, there might be an awful lot going on. Have a lot of empathy, be supportive. Don't immediately assume that people are taking the mickey. There's probably something a bit deeper going on. And yeah, the other thing to sort of talk about is, which a lot of people are starting to realize now that we're a few weeks in, you really need to make sure that you've got the right kind of equipment. One thing that I've actually heard a lot of people are doing is they're contacting, rather than going all the way back into their office and risking getting, I don't know, stopped by slightly overreacting police, they're instead finding local suppliers of office chairs, local businesses perhaps who are no longer using their office chairs. I found two perfectly decent office chairs on Nextdoor. Never used Nextdoor before, but literally I've seemed to have found everything that I need locally on there. The other sort of really, really important thing, and Mike, by the way, says, love Nextdoor. Great. Glad you like Nextdoor, Mike. Thankfully, they've finally sorted out all of the 5G conspiracy theories, that they're now gone. So yes, I now love Nextdoor too. The other thing which I think is brilliant is having a laptop stand. The last thing actually that you want to be doing is hunching over. And you might have the best seat in the world, but if you're working from a laptop, you're basically putting force on your cervical spine, apparently. I really, really like, I'm actually presenting to you right now off of something called the Tiny Tower. I promise you I have no relationship with any of these companies that I recommend. Maybe I probably should do. Maybe I should be getting commission or something from them, but I don't. I just love this product. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, I actually use it a lot. I was using this product a lot even before lockdown. It's a great thing to be able to stick in your bag. And yeah, Paula says, very, very true. An osteopath who hopefully can kind of give some kind of proof to this claim that it puts force on your cervical spine. There we go. Hopefully that is true. So as well as making sure you have the right chair, you have the right posture, also important to think about using the right software tools. So quite often what happens is we go from one medium to another and we simply do things exactly the same way. So we think, we used to do all of our meetings in a meeting room. Well, let's just take the exact same thing and yeah, let's just do all of our meetings now on Zoom and make them half an hour and make everybody sort of listen to everything. Actually, we need to sort of question this, and we need to think about maybe using different tools and different ways of working. Cervical spine is affected by lumbar spine position, so get good lumbar support. Absolutely, do get good lumbar support. I will be sure to do so. I don't think actually, yeah, this particular chair, you're making me question whether or not this chair is the right one for me now. So yeah, I'd be really interested to know what tools some of you are all using. Please do type those into the chat box. While I'm waiting for you to kind of talk about what you are using, I want to kind of highlight one that I think is really, really brilliant. It is called LOOM. If you're not using it already, it is a cushion is a good alternative. I will get a cushion. Do you know what? I'm going to get one literally right this minute. We're going to do this live. Here we go. There is hopefully a really good cushion for my lumbar support. So LOOM is really started out, if you like, as a kind of how-to video recording service. So you have your own little chat head in the corner, and then you're doing screen sharing, and you can show someone, for example, how your product works. That was one of the original use cases. But actually now, if you go to this link that Kieran has kindly stuck into the chat box, what you can do is you can actually send team updates with quick videos. You can deliver updates to your clients with videos. It's just quite often a lot faster than typing an email, and a lot better, a lot more visual, a lot more. There's much more of a kind of human collection. Oh yeah, a wee tip is it's important to mute when you're not talking on Zoom in a group. Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with that. That is a super important thing to do. Also, from a kind of tech perspective, some of you may find if you're doing a lot of talking, you might find it helpful to have a separate microphone. This one is called the Jabra, the Jabra. That's a really helpful thing as well. It just means that you, especially if you're typing, it doesn't end up carrying that typing noise into your kind of microphone. Yeah, you can also do team training documentation with LOOM. You can onboard new customers if you've got a kind of a fiddly onboarding process. You can kind of show them how to do that. And also, LOOM can be quite a good way to do internal team communication. They're also LOOM. They've removed, and I think it's until the end of June, they've basically removed all of their recording restrictions. So now is actually a really good time to use this tool for free. After that, you'll be able to get it for something like $5 a month, or whatever the pound equivalent will be. Okay, so the other tools, if you're designers, you might well find a tool like Figma. Is really helpful for kind of collaborating. Oh yeah, sorry, we've got one question here from Ollie. Ollie asks, does LOOM record your screen? Yeah, it basically records the whole of your screen or part of your screen, and it has your head in a little video sort of chat bubble as well. And you can do stuff like lots of really nice annotations and stuff. Can also do kind of annotations, interestingly, on Zoom. It's possible to do annotations on Zoom, but the annotations on LOOM are incredible. You can just sort of highlight a particular area of the screen and say, look, this particular website you've made for me, this doesn't really work for me. This I don't know, this particular button that you've made. Yeah, design teams should check out Figma. Video editing software, there's collaborative software now like frame.io. There's all kinds of different tools that are emerging and that are really worth checking out, many of which are available on that link that we sort of shared with you earlier. We are all in it together, 2020.com. And yes, the free trial, Rob says, on LOOM has also been extended from 14 to 30 days. Fantastic information, Rob. Keep it coming. Anybody else got any other kind of tools that they are using? The one thing that I would suggest actually is that instead of always opening up, for example, Zoom and just talking as sort of talking heads, can actually be helpful to work on a shared document. So if you use Google Docs, actually get one person to share their screen, get other people to edit the document live with each other. That can actually be a much better way of working together than simply one person presenting off of a Google slide. I realize I'm not practicing what I preach here. I probably should have done this as a Google Doc. Probably should have got you guys to kind of add some extra slides in. Never mind, we'll do that next time. And really, the kind of important thing here is to actually change your mindset. We need to change our mindsets really away from thinking that actually everything has to be done the old way, with a PowerPoint, with a I don't know, with a sort of an email even. Actually, now we can change things. We can use these really, really great new tools, and as long as we use them in the right way, actually, remote working sometimes, for some things, can actually almost be better. Paula says, started doing ergonomic exercises on YouTube. Excellent. Yeah, there's just so much opportunity now to actually connect with, if you like, a kind of wider audience. It's also worth checking out platforms like IGTV on Instagram that allow you to do longer videos. And also there's been a massive growth in people who aren't teenagers using TikTok, that sort of seemingly inexplicable little app that started out as a Chinese lip syncing service and now has sort of taken over almost all teenagers' lives. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about getting help. We've talked about steadying the ship. We've talked about working from home. Now we need to think about where things are going and actually how you can adapt your business model, whether you are, I don't know, setting up a business doing, what was there? What did we have? We had, yeah, whether you are an author or a speaker, or whether or not you previously had a coffee shop. We need to think about how you might adapt your business model. So I've got a couple of kind of examples as we go through that might give some inspiration. Quite like this quote, and this guy Steve Blank says, "This is a conscious shutdown of our economy, and we've got to remember what we're really doing is we're trading jobs for saving hundreds of thousands of lives. It's almost inconceivable that you can have the same business model today as you did 30 years ago." And it's true to say that while some of us might have initially expected that this was just going to be a little bit of a blip, we'd all go sort of work from home, and then a few weeks would pass, we'd come out of confinement, and then everything would go back to exactly how it was before. That's not what will happen. Although some things may well go back to how they were before, other elements, other perhaps trends that were going to have played out over the next decade, other trends have suddenly been fast forwarded, and actually business models, will not be the same after this crisis, even if we end up having quite a rapid resolution to it, which I personally don't expect. But imagine tomorrow a new vaccine came online and it was really quick and cheap to produce and distribute. Even then, we would still see permanent changes in some of the behaviors, in some of the sort of new technology. Some of this is going to be permanent, even if this ends up being short-lived. Actually, you need to think about different scenarios, whether it's, we hear about all these different kind of shapes of curve, whether it's a short-term rebound across 6 months, whether it ends up being more a kind of U-curve recovery over 18 months, or whether it's more an L-curve that takes kind of 3 years to recover from. You need to think about those 3 different scenarios, and then actually think, is this shutdown, this lockdown, is this going to be positive for my business, mildly negative, severe, or catastrophic. So someone, Mike, says someone that he was speaking to described the transition of publishing and basically said, yeah, that what was planned to happen in 36 months will actually now happen in 3 months. It's really accelerating a digitally dependent world. Absolutely. This really is pressing fast forward on stuff that we knew was going to happen probably anyway. So yeah, what you really need to look at is 3 different scenarios, perhaps 6-month impact, 18-month impact, 3-year impact, which I know no one wants to hear is going to be happening. I know a lot of people are hoping that we're going to get a vaccine in 18 months. Honestly, personally, I think we're looking at potentially longer, a kind of 3-year impact. So do potentially think about those scenarios there. Okay, so the other thing to think about is how consumers are actually changing their behavior. Really nice website here from Glimpse, which is called the COVID-19 Consumer Impact Tracker. It shows you what people are talking about on social media, what they're searching for on Google. And you can see there, for example, loads of people are searching for ukuleles. People want to do DIY haircuts, so they're searching probably there for information on how to cut their hair, or indeed information on how to get clippers, or all this kind of stuff. So yeah, do check that out and see if there might be something in one of those categories that perhaps aligns with your business that will allow you to maybe do something a little bit different. The other thing to think about some of these more fundamental changes in behavior. Really love this mind map that comes from boardofinnovation.com. And Board of Innovation have put together a report that talks about shifts in what they call the low touch economy. If I kind of zoom in a little bit on this, you'll end up seeing that there are all of these different really quite bad changes that are going to happen. What they're doing is they're then saying, okay, well, if we have mass unemployment, what will that mean? It will mean loss of income. It will mean more stress at home. It will mean changes in employee relationship. It will mean temporary, potentially universal basic income. So actually they're mapping those things together. We can then at the end points of these, we can see, look, there'll be more push for home monitoring tools, focus on deliverables versus activity, more flexible working hours, rise in side jobs and freelancing. This mind map will actually help you understand how to shift what your business does alongside something like the COVID-19 trend tracker. And there's lots of interesting reports that are coming out as well. This one comes from McKinsey & Company that essentially say, how many people have just started using these services. For something like grocery delivery, all of a sudden 20% of people have started using that. Meal kit delivery has massively increased. You're also seeing stuff like remote learning, both for adults as well as for kids. Look at that, there we go. 20% of people who had never used TikTok before have started using TikTok. All kinds of different things are kind of going on there. And yeah, as Mike says, the whole world will be in startup mode all of a sudden. It will be very kind of interesting. Yeah, it's hopefully, this is something maybe you can be a little bit more optimistic about if you are looking to kind of shift your business model. Obviously, if you do offer services, it's important now to think about, what are the growth industries. If previously you were a designer and you mostly designed interfaces for, I don't know, Skyscanner, you're probably going to want to shift to maybe market your services to different industries. So actually think about what are some of those growth industries and how do you actually make yourself known to potential clients in those industries. And actually, yeah, it'd be really interesting to think about what you can create that potentially will fulfill a new need that maybe isn't a new need. Maybe it will fulfill a need that has always been there, but one that will now have to be fulfilled in a different way. Or you might ask yourself, what can I create that will ease a new anxiety? This is a slightly amusing one, although it is a serious product. This is a keychain touch tool for opening doors and pressing buttons without touching them. So this is actually a genuine product. Peel normally make cases for iPhones and other smartphones, and actually that isn't really a growth industry right now. So instead, they've pivoted and they're now offering this crazy tool that not only allows you to open doors and touch stuff without touching it, it also apparently can open a bottle of beer for when you are finally celebrating of coming out of lockdown. Also, some people who were already planning on launching startups, they've had to change things up quite significantly. Excuse the website here that isn't quite working 100%. These guys haven't actually launched yet. They just sent this to me this morning. Serious Tissues were planning for quite a while to launch a sustainable recycled toilet roll business. They didn't want to be seen to be ambulance chasing. They really didn't want to see, if you like, things go a little bit sort of, they didn't really want to get accused of profiting from the current lack of loo roll, shall we say. So actually they've decided to launch with 100% of profits going to the NHS. I think a really nice way of saying, look, we're going to take a bit of a hit here, but let's do this so that actually when we have finally built a customer base, we've got it, we can actually then start charging. We can maybe start looking at a for-profit model somewhere down the line. And yeah, in order to actually think about how best to refocus your efforts, or how to, if you like, kind of pivot what you're currently doing. If you've never done one of these before, I'd really advise doing a customer journey mapping. Of course, if you have already done a customer journey mapping or a customer decision journey, now would be a very good time to redo that, because essentially what you do when you do a customer journey map, you think about how the customer or a potential customer might get triggered into needing your product, and then discover your product, and then actually decide that they want to buy your product. That has completely changed now. Well worth doing that. Check out customer journey mapping on Atlassian. Finally, if you're a software startup, think about how you can adapt your product to help. What new behaviors are showing up in your analytics? That's something to really think about. We just got a last couple of moments to go before we sort of round off. Hopefully a couple of you can kind of stick around to ask a couple of questions. But really I want to end by thinking about how we build resilient businesses that will survive not just this crisis, but any other crisis that comes along. So first of all, make sure that, you kind of are resilient. I quite like this. This is a local gym. Obviously, their subscriptions have fallen off a cliff. So they've said, you know what, we're going to rent out our equipment weekly to local people so that we can actually keep this business going. You also want to make sure that you stay relevant, that you actually remind people that you kind of still exist. A friend of mine set up a cocktail bar, a pop-up cocktail bar in a what by day is a restaurant. So in the evenings, he has set up this cocktail bar in a pie and mash shop. It is by day. He now doesn't have a business, but he is now selling 500ml bottles of pre-mixed cocktails to his existing customers, just to kind of keep that relationship going. And yeah, we've kind of got this book recommendation. Instead of being merely resilient, the best thing is if you can hopefully introduce this concept of anti-fragility to your business. Essentially, anti-fragility is beyond resilience. It really means that if you get shocks, it actually gets better. So the kind of analogy here is that actually, if you do a small amount of exercise, if you like lift weights, what that essentially is doing is that's getting your body to build up extra capacity in preparation for a bigger shock in the future. So actually, by putting your business under regular stress during the good times, actually that will make your business a little bit more resilient in the future. You need to actually make sure that instead of your business being as efficient as possible, then please, please, please do think about introducing stressors. An example I would kind of encourage you to have a look at, Netflix built something called Chaos Monkey that essentially randomly terminates computers in Netflix's data center. So they've had this for a long time. It randomly turns computers off. What this means is that obviously they need to build resilience into their systems, because otherwise the Chaos Monkey is going to come and ruin everything. And obviously that has set them up in good stead to have a really reliable service when the good times are around. The other thing is, make sure as well, when the good times come back, that you build up cash reserves. It's so important. You may think that this is wasteful, but of course, as we've all learned, it's incredibly helpful to have these reserves in the bank that will then help us ride out the next crisis. Just want to leave you with this kind of thought. Please, we can't actually predict the future, but do make sure that we are prepared for it. And at that point in time, I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions. If you could raise your hands. So there should be a little button somewhere I think it might be in the participant list, that will allow you to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question with your real voice. If you're feeling a little bit shyer, then feel free to ask a question in the chat box. Before everybody starts dropping off, we do have a special offer for anybody who would like to find out more about what Tide has to offer. If you go to tide.co/partners/webinar, that would be amazing. Mike has to run. Thank you so much, Mike. Before you go though, if anybody is able to, we have a feedback link. For those of you that do have to rush off, I'd love it if you could actually sort of fill out some feedback. I'm just going to pop that link into the main sort of chat window there. It is t.szekeres/tide-feedback. If anybody does though have a question, we'd love to answer. First of all, any tips for renegotiating a rent lease? I would say if you're renegotiating a rent lease, so I kind of have a bit of inside knowledge on this. My father-in-law is, sorry, not my father-in-law, my stepfather. He basically owns a bunch of commercial properties. I think one of my tips would be these people are human beings. We might not think of them always as being human beings, but most of them will actually be open to actually having a renegotiation. If you have a rent lease, it's just really important to remember that having some, to remind people that having some rent coming in is better than having no rent coming in. I think it's important to be empathetic in your dealings with people. They may also be going through a lot of stuff. Already asking for full rent. I tell you what, DJ, I'm going to actually send you a resource that I have on negotiations after this session, so hopefully that will maybe help you out. Also, just want to shout out Holly, who says that she has some YouTube videos at youtube.com/Yoga Hero UK. I will definitely be checking that out. I would love to do some yoga. Haven't done any yet. Awesome stuff. Any more questions from anybody in the audience, please do stick them in there. Lots of nice words from people. This has been great, Tom. Thank you. Made lots of notes. Enter this webinar thinking you don't know what you don't know, and that has proven to be the case. Lovely stuff. Got a few people who said that they would be interested to see negotiation materials too. What I will say on that is that it can be very, very helpful to have a script prepared when you're doing this kind of stuff. Any kind of negotiation, I always make it as much as possible sound like I am speaking off the cuff, but nearly always when I'm doing a negotiation, I have a script and I have my strategy literally written down on a piece of paper that I'm referring to as I'm on the phone, and I will always negotiate usually on the phone. Really, really helpful to have a script. What I will do is I'll send you some links to some helpful people that have put together scripts for doing negotiations. Rebecca says, got to dash, food deliveries and truck drivers are due. Stay safe. Please, for those of you that are left, we'd absolutely love to get your honest, candid feedback. So please do send us that feedback. We are hopefully going to be doing a lot more of these webinars to be as useful as we can to you. It really helps us when we have this feedback and are able to kind of build and iterate on that. Clara asks, could you please give me the link for the scenario spreadsheet you mentioned at the beginning? I came later, sorry. Yeah, I think I actually might even have that particular one in, let me see, yeah, there we go. I've got it in my clipboard. So there it is. Oh, I've sent that to the wrong place. I need to send that to everybody. There we go. It is T.Szekeres /Tide-CASHFLOW. That's where you'll be able to get the spreadsheet. Rob says, thanks, Tom and Kim, very useful feedback given on the app. Lovely stuff. DJ would like to know if there are webinars for certain types of businesses, for example, beauty. Yeah, we will definitely think about how we might be able to put together some some webinars, potentially certain niches. Definitely some great feedback there. Any more last burning questions? Please don't be shy. If you do have something you really would like to ask, feel free, if you like, to ask it anonymously. It is possible to ask a question only to panelists. If you do want to ask it anonymously, I will notice that you've done that, and I will not read out your name. I don't know if that's kind of a consideration for anybody. Hopefully it isn't. Okay, here we go. How do you see the entertainment sector recover? I would ask you, Clara, if you could remind me, what aspect of the entertainment sector are you in? And if I'm sort of waiting for you, hopefully I'll kind of wait around for you to say, oh, there we go, music industry, yeah. Well, we're going to see, I believe, if we're talking about live music, it's going to be very interesting, because we'll probably move to a world where we end up with passporting. So it'll take a while to sort of have live music up and running again, opening clubs, opening concert venues. I think there will definitely be immunity passports will be a big thing. Security on the door will be a big thing. People may well swap out, complement having metal detectors with other kinds of scanners. And also, yeah, we'll definitely see a lot more online events. A friend recently launched a label and DJ services. You said, yeah, I think one thing to encourage is actually partnering up with businesses. So, for example, a local business to me is called Hop, Burns and Black. They have, for the past 5 years, run a beer shop. They basically do beer, they do hot sauce, and they do vinyl. Hop, Burns and Black. They are now switching, obviously, to be 100% online, 100% deliveries. They are actually working with DJs and with, I think, potentially with a record label. And what they're doing is they're doing live events with their customer base, where their customer base will basically get the beers in, and then they will provide a live stream of music on a Saturday night, and it's actually a chance for everybody to get together. I think those kinds of gatherings are going to be happening much more often, and potentially, yeah, there's some interesting stuff where you could have combinations of, yeah, DJs working with who knows, online delivery brands to do that kind of stuff. Hot, Burns and Black, I'd really recommend checking them out, just because they're just really good at being adaptable at seeing new markets, and also marketing their own business. Anything new comes along, they jump straight on it, and they write a great newsletter as well. So check those guys out. Again, I don't get any kickbacks from them. I just love their business. Okay, cool. So I don't know if there are any final burning questions. We've still got quite a few people kind of kicking around. I don't know if anybody sort of wants to. I don't know if you can sort of unmute everybody. We've unmuted everybody. I think, have we unmuted everybody? If anybody does want to talk and say anything, I'm just going to sort of allow everybody to say a quick hi or a quick bye if they want to. I think I've allowed you to talk using the interface, but I think you will still have to unmute yourself if you do want to sort of say anything, or if you do want to sort of ask a quick question. I can see there's like 2 people.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, how are you doing? Hi, Ollie.
Hey, mate. Well done. That was great.
Thanks very much. Do you have any kind of last questions or any kind of?
I suppose the tech stuff is all very interesting to me, and just keeping abreast of things, which I don't do very well. So LOOM is going to be something I'm going to explore, because there's a software that I wanted to show how it uses and use helping educating casting directors how to use that software to inadvertently just sort of wave and say, I'm here, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
So I'm going to explore that. I did have a question about the delivery thing though that you set up.
Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit more into exactly what the deal is with that and how it works? And
yeah, absolutely. So so these days a lot of websites are now being built on a tool called GitHub. I'm saying it's on a tool called GitHub. A lot of websites are basically being sharing their code using GitHub. So the code for that website has been made open source. You need to be a little bit technical, but at some point I think I'm going to do it on LinkedIn. I'm going to share how you create, if you like, a kind of clone of dealdelivers.com, because that was the original one. So yeah, I'm going to do that at some point on LinkedIn. So there's a little reason to add me on LinkedIn, is if you do want to set up your own version of Deal or Dulwich Delivers locally, then I'm going to probably do a little kind of video, potentially on Loom, on how to do that. We got one more question actually from Paula. Oh no, sorry, we had a question first of all actually from Clara, who actually asks, Airbnb, do you think they can be resilient enough? And I guess my answer to that is, I think that Airbnb will be a lot more resilient than, for example, WeWork, because Airbnb obviously don't actually own any of the locations. So while of course Airbnb are going to take a really big hit, I think yes, they can be resilient enough. I think actually when the time comes to reopen, people are going to be really quite scared of going to public places for a while longer. So almost I think people will prefer going to Airbnb rentals when they do start going on holiday again. I think they'll prefer going to Airbnb rentals over jumping on a plane and going somewhere and going to a hotel. I think driving holidays where you drive to an Airbnb, I think will recover sooner than holidays where you jump on a plane and go to a hotel. So yeah, I think so. And then finally from Paula, I'd be interested in knowing more about the online equestrian business in Leicestershire. It may surprise you to know this, Paula, but I don't know very much about online equestrian businesses in Leicestershire, sadly. But there we go. I don't know if there are any other people. I can see here that Christian is unmuted. I don't know, Christian, if you had any questions or if you had any last kind of closing thoughts at all.
Thanks, Tom. It's been really, really interesting session. And I think one of the things that kind of strikes me, and I probably echo Oliver's comments about the sort of technology side, but one of the things that's been really interesting in talking to my clients has been about leading from home, leading their teams and keeping their teams motivated and focused, and all of the challenges around that. And some of the things you've identified in here will be useful to try and kind of keep teams focused on keeping those businesses moving as far as we possibly can in the current really challenging environment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is going to be really important to make sure that you're regularly touching them with people. So I don't know if are you doing, for example, daily stand-ups with your team first thing?
We're doing some of that, but we're having, one of the things we found to be really useful, and I've sort of lead a business of about 60 people, is we're actually having twice a week a social call where people can just join via Zoom, talk about anything. It doesn't have to be business related. We did a quiz last time. We've done a music round, name that tune sort of thing. So it just keeps people chatting because they're not getting the time to chat by the water cooler as they perhaps would have done normally. And it's just trying to keep a little bit of connectedness to the business and connectedness to the community that we've got within our business. Yeah,
definitely. Absolutely. I think as well, like the other thing to sort of think about is, do you use, for example, if you've got 60 people, do you use, if you use Zoom, do you use breakout rooms?
We don't, but it's a really interesting capability for some sort of other work in terms of particularly around team coaching, whereas team coaching would generally be having a team of people in a room together. Doing that remotely is entirely possible, and with breakout rooms and Zoom and what have you, there is the capability to do it. So that's a really interesting area, and we're talking about some of the outcomes from the situation we're in now. I think there's a potential for additional avenues of business for us, which before might have been much more around coaching with people in a room. Now actually doing team coaching for teams who are spread all over the world is entirely possible. So so it's an interesting opportunity and an interesting challenge all at the same time.
Amazing stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And thank you all so much for being such a great bunch of participants, for getting really, really heavily involved in today. Lots of great questions, both in the chat box and also just now when you were unmuted. Very, very, very grateful to all of you. Please, please, please do stay in touch. As I say, we will send you some of these links after the webinar is over. I will also try and make a copy of this webinar presentation available. We'll also get you links of the video recording of this as well, so that you're able to actually watch this back and maybe sort of see the beginning if you missed the beginning, or see the middle if your internet connection went a bit awry. Thank you all so much. We're probably going to sign out now, and just wish you all the very, very best of luck. We will hopefully all get through this one way or another. Stay strong and stay adaptable.